Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
I believe that the minister crossed the line as a member of cabinet. She made remarks that were wrong.
BC's post-secondary education minister is facing calls to resign over comments she made related to the conflict between Israel and Gaza. Plus,
it's very, very difficult buying groceries.
Have to plan on going somewhere else outside and arranging for a ride.
Some Richmond seniors are struggling to find affordable food after a long-time grocery store burned down. And
you have to leave within 4 days. That was a little jarring.
A homeless encampment at a South Vancouver park is dismantled amid fire concerns. Some campers wonder where they'll go next.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Hello, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. A homeless encampment in a park in South Vancouver has now been dismantled. The province says it's a necessary safety step after a fire broke out. But as Michelle Gomez shows us, advocates say it's left some with nowhere else to go.
I don't know. I'll probably go over there, right there, I guess.
Eburn Park was a makeshift home to about 7 people at the start of this week, but on Monday, provincial staff told residents a trespass notice had been issued and they would be trespassing if they remained at the park past Thursday.
To all of a sudden be told, yeah, they might get arrested and you have to leave within 4 days, that was a little jarring and didn't know what to do, and I still don't know.
Justin has resided in the park for about 7 months. He says it's the safest place he's lived since coming to Vancouver 2 years ago.
The community around here has shown a significant amount of support, especially when it was cold. We were bringing hot food and coffee and checking up on people, making sure they were not going to get hurt from the cold overnight.
Workers could be seen clearing items with garbage bins and an excavator Friday. Housing advocates were at the park speaking out.
What needs to happen is patience and care. If there's housing coming online, start treating people better. Stop taking their tents.
They are very much welcome here, and we're committed to defending our neighbors. We're here to say that we are very much in support of them.
We are taking people from their safest option, stripping them of everything, and then putting them right back out on the street.
The province says it's a necessary safety step after a fire at the encampment last weekend damaged tents and a large tree. It says outreach staff offered residents shelter space prior to the trespass deadline. But for Justin, staying at a shelter means getting rid of most of his belongings.
It's tough, and there's a lot of stealing and a lot of politics that happen in the shelters. And having more than just a backpack really is not accessible for them in any sort of way.
As of Friday afternoon, only Justin and one other person remained at the park. Where they will eventually end up, still to be determined. Michelle Gomez, CBC News, Vancouver.
Surrey RCMP are trying to track down a suspect after a shooting sent one person to hospital with serious injuries. Someone opened fire near 120th Street and 84th Avenue just after 1:30 in the afternoon. About half an hour later, police say they were alerted to a vehicle fire near 179th Street and 99th Avenue. Police have not confirmed whether those two incidents are related. Many seniors in Richmond's Steveston neighborhood are struggling to adapt after a local supermarket burnt down. The well-known grocery store had been in the business for more than 40 years. As John Hernandez reports, people in low-income housing say there are not any affordable alternatives nearby.
Gerald Lindsay is off to buy some groceries, but he says the trek is a lot harder than it used to be.
So now I have to use my chair to go about 4 blocks to save on. I have to sort of choose my way and go through parking lots and stuff.
For years, Lindsay would shop at the family-run Super Grocer. It was a mainstay in Richmond's Steveston area for 40 years. But on Friday, it caught fire. It didn't take long before the building was completely destroyed.
It sort of changed my life because I live in the building across the street and I'm in a wheelchair for a while, and that was sort of the only place that I could get to.
The loss isn't only weighing on Lindsay. There are about 200 units of subsidized senior housing across from the former store, and residents say many of them have mobility challenges, making the additional 500-meter trip to Save on Foods a big challenge for some.
A lot of them cannot walk 3 or 4 blocks to Save on.
As you see, I've got 2 bags on me and 1 hanging on my wheelchair. So it's the impact is much harder now.
And then there are the prices, which they say are higher for some items at the big grocery store.
I'm on disability pension, so like I live on $1,000 a month. So it's very difficult.
When you're on pensions and stuff, prices matter. The seniors in this area, it will hurt us all because the Save on prices are like double what they were here.
Organizers at the Richmond Food Bank Society say the store played a critical role supporting a low-income community as prices on store shelves continue to climb across the country.
Now that they don't have that store that they used to go to, it might impact their ability to purchase food, and one of the consequences might be that they might end up at a food bank.
On Friday, Super Grocer sold off remaining stock off-site. Owners declined to speak with CBC News. The future of the business uncertain, as many in this community hold out hope that it will one day reopen its doors. John Hernandez, CBC News, Richmond.
The BC government's apology to the Doukhobor community in the West Kootenays is continuing. Attorney General Nikki Sharma was in Grand Forks for a second address after issuing an apology in Castlegar on Thursday. It was for the province's mistreatment of Doukhobor children between 1953 to 1959. About 200 of them were taken and confined to a facility in New Denver. Families of survivors gathered to reflect on the trauma they faced.
All my dad's life, that's all he wanted, was to hear that apology. And he's not here to hear it. Not physically. But I'm hoping now he can finally get a little bit of rest.
The government will be issuing a formal apology in the legislature in the coming weeks. The CBC's Indigenous unit has obtained never-before-seen RCMP footage of a 2-day police raid in BC in 2021. It shows officers arresting people at Coyote Camp on the Wet'suwet'en territory. As Jackie McKay explains, dozens of people were arrested for blocking work on the Coastal GasLink pipeline, and protesters argue it was an abuse of power.
CBC Indigenous has obtained RCMP footage that has never been made public before.
You're all under arrest for civil contempt of court.
The video shows arrests at Coyote Camp on the Wet'suwet'en territory, a key location for the Coastal GasLink pipeline. This footage takes place during a 2-day police raid in which dozens of people were arrested for blocking work on the pipeline. Pipeline opponents refused to leave the camp in support of the hereditary chiefs of the Wet'suwet'en Nation, who say the company had no right putting the pipeline through their land. One of the most public Wet'suwet'en faces of the movement is Slato, also known as Molly Wickham. She was arrested with Shaylin Sampson, a Gitxsan woman with Wet'suwet'en family ties who was also being outspoken about the pipeline.
You're choking me.
They stood trial with Corey Jocko, a Gunye Gehega man from Akwesasne. They have all been charged with criminal contempt of court. Sampson is shown here, singing as she's being taken into custody.
Is there room?
I don't know.
Let's go this way.
All 3 were found guilty of those charges and are now in an abuse of process application before the court, alleging RCMP used excessive force and mistreated them while in custody. Despite the blockade's efforts, the pipeline construction is complete.
The Canadian Food Inspection Agency confirms chronic wasting disease has now been found in 2 deer in the Kootenays. The deadly illness has been rapidly spreading through Western Canada, but this is the first time it's been seen in BC. It affects other animals in the deer family as well, like moose, caribou, and elk. BC officials have set up an enhanced surveillance program to try to reduce the spread.
We are in a fortunate place that we've learned from other jurisdictions' experiences and have a management plan and dedicated staff for this effort. So I think we are in a good place.
Both cases in BC were discovered south of Cranbrook. People in that area are being told to avoid eating and feeding deer or handling carcasses. The World Health Organization says there is no evidence the untreatable disease can spread to people. A heads up for transit users, the Canada Line is facing major delays with no service between Oak Ridge 41st and Waterfront stations. TransLink says it's due to a mechanical issue, and extra buses and staff have been brought in to help. Expo and Millennium Line SkyTrains are not affected. Meanwhile, the weekend is also shaping up to be a traffic gridlock in downtown Vancouver. The Lions Gate Bridge, Stanley Park Causeway, and the Georgia Viaduct will all see significant lane closures both days. In Stanley Park, the city continues to remove thousands of dead and damaged trees affected by a moth infestation. On Saturday, a partial closure between 7:30 a.m. and 2 p.m. means pedestrians and cyclists will be detoured through the park to the east of the causeway. On Sunday, a full closure from 7:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. will see the bridge and Stanley Park Causeway closed to cars, bikes, and pedestrians. After 11, it's down to a single lane as cyclists and pedestrians are detoured through the park to the east of the causeway again. And the Georgia Viaduct will be closed in both directions Saturday and Sunday between 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. It will be down to one eastbound lane open between 8 p.m. and 6 p.m. both days. A tower crane being positioned for an upcoming development is causing the closures there. And as we peer into the weekend, Darius Madavi will tell us what's going to come from the sky.
Yes, and before we get into that, I just had a couple really nice photos sent to us from some of our colleagues here at CBC. So beautiful rainbow showing over Victoria earlier today, apparently stretching across most of the sky, which is quite lovely. Here in Vancouver, we got a pretty nice sunset as some of those clouds parted just enough that we could see some of it just over the horizon. This thanks to Mel Carter. Some incredible clouds there as well. And then in Kelowna is not going to show up. So we'll have that in the next weather hit. So don't worry about that because we will take a look at the satellite and radar instead, which you can see. We've started to see a lot more of these little spots of mixed and maybe not quite snow just yet, but at least mix across parts of the island and even the mainland here. You can see a little bit of improvement considering where we've been in terms of seeing pretty much just green for the last while. And in the days ahead, unfortunately, even as freezing levels do come down, it looks like more and more we're going to be seeing drying conditions over the next few days through the weekend. So maybe some good news for people that are a little bit sick of all the rain, particularly here on the local mountains and in Vancouver and across the island, not to mention, all up the lower mainland. But if we look ahead, even though we are cooling down, pretty much no more precipitation in the days ahead. So not much news there for not much good news there for skiers, unfortunately, even though conditions are looking a little bit better. We're not quite there yet. But just another cloudy night tonight, maybe a little bit of drizzle overnight and into tomorrow morning. But for the most part, a little bit of sunshine.
I think we'll take it. Thanks, Darius.
Thank you.
Stand-up comedy shows are almost always boozy events. But next up, we're going to speak to one man who has launched alcohol-free comedy nights in town. Stick around. And hello to everyone watching our commercial-free live stream tonight. Thanks for being here. A Vancouver-based Bitcoin business is facing fines for secret, unsanctioned crypto mines in rural Alberta. Green Block Mining has been ordered to pay more than $400,000 in penalties and legal costs. Madeline Cummings tells us how they got caught.
The Alberta Utilities Commission has ordered a Vancouver company to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for operating power plants without approval. And one of them was right here behind me in Sturgeon County. These weren't ordinary power plants, they were Bitcoin mines. In addition to this location, Green Block Mining, formerly called Link Global Technologies, was also running others in southern Alberta and Westlock. The company set up generators at this dormant natural gas well, and using that power, computer servers in 4 shipping containers mined the digital currency. Across this field, residents started hearing noise from the plant, and they weren't happy about it. 10 households complained to the commission, saying the sound was affecting their sleep. The company hadn't told them they were moving in, and it also had not gotten approval from the commission. The commission investigated, and following other enforcement orders, it came to a settlement agreement with the company last month.
I think it's good that the government cracked down on these illegal operations. That's not how things should operate. We should not have somebody set up illegally such a big infrastructure project. This is not right.
Greenbloc has agreed to pay nearly $350,000 in penalties, plus $60,000 in legal fees for the Commission's enforcement staff. That was supposed to be paid within 30 days, and the company made a partial payment, but still owes just over $200,000. The company told the Commission it's not currently solvent, and raising money in BC to pay a regulatory fine in Alberta has been hard. But Greenbloc's lawyer, Gavin Fitch, says the company intends to pay it all off. He says Greenbloc accepts it made mistakes in Alberta and looks forward to putting this matter behind it. Madeline Cummings, CBC News, Edmonton.
Vancouver is full of comedy shows, and many have one thing in common: booze. The events are hosted at bars, and audiences are regularly tipping them back. But one man is trying to change that by launching a new alcohol-free comedy show to support people who are going through recovery. Connor Levesque is a comedian and founder of the By the Hour Comedy, and he joins us now. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me.
So what's been your experience up on stage and maybe just in the crowd when people are tipping them back at a comedy show?
I've been in recovery for close to 4 years now, and there's a saying in a lot of recovery circles that if you hang out in a barbershop long enough, you're going to get a haircut, you know? And so that's been my experience with, I feel strong in my recovery, but like being surrounded by alcohol all the time, and it just becomes a trigger. And I wanted to create a safe place where other people can come and enjoy comedy in an environment that's not typically a bar or a club. Yeah.
So how does By the Hour Comedy work now?
By the Hour Comedy is, we've been graciously accepted a sponsorship from Nani non-alcoholic beer. So they have been a huge help with us. We're basically, the whole entire premise of this thing is to ask the community for help and see how we can help the community back.
Yeah.
Like we were talking to Together We Can treatment centers today, and it works by being of service to others and allowing ourselves to be helped by the other.
And when it comes to service, what sort of service do you get for perhaps yourself and for others when it comes to comedy, going through your journey with recovery?
I guess at the end of the day, I stay sober.
Yeah.
You know, that's the whole, I think what my recovery kind of boils down to is if I help other people get sober or maintain sobriety, I get that in return. And that's kind of like the secret formula of it. Yeah.
And how important is comedy in there and humor?
It's like we have to be, like it's you know, I've heard people say like, how are you going to laugh at all this comedy if you're not drinking? And it's like, it's when you're in sobriety, like it releases this like jovialness. Is that a word, jovialness? Sure. Okay.
It is now. Joviality, but that's okay.
Yeah. But people who find sobriety after living usually a life in like in heck, HE double hockey sticks, usually find so much zest for life and are ready to laugh, and it's very beneficial.
Part of the treatment almost.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
looking back at that tragedy and creating laughter out of it. Yeah.
And lastly, we appreciate your time. For people who are interested in coming, perhaps getting up on stage, or wanting to be in the crowd, booze-free, when and where?
When and where is it's it's called the Well Studios. It's outside of or it's inside the City Center Motel on Main Street. It's the City Center Artist Lodge now. So it's not a motel. It's turned into artist lodges, and you can catch us there every Wednesday at 8 o'clock. Yeah, and we are always looking for help from local businesses and stuff like that. Like we do a raffle every week we want to support local businesses. We want to support. And comedians, too. Great. If you're a comedian, let us know. Yeah.
We like to laugh.
Yeah.
Connor Levesque, we really appreciate your time. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much. Yeah, appreciate it.
2023 was a tough year for many small businesses. Now, new bankruptcy data paints a grim picture. We break down the numbers after this.
It can take time to turn left out of this Elmsdale subdivision. But what if I told you this is the only exit for more than 300 homes? That came to mind for some residents as thousands were forced to evacuate as wildfires spread across Nova Scotia.
It's terrifying. I mean, some people couldn't get back to their pets, and as a pet owner with 2 dogs, if I was told I couldn't get in because to get my dogs, that would be very upsetting.
Jodri lives here in Elmwood subdivision with her family. She says record rainfall in July exposed another vulnerability.
We had a flood at the end of the street, so they were actually kayaking by the only exit out of the subdivision, so there was no leaving at that point either. So,
in response to the wildfires, Halifax Regional Municipality created emergency exits for subdivisions, and others are being planned. Here in the municipality of East Hants, staff found at least 17 areas with more than 50 homes, but only one way out.
The biggest challenge is who owns the land.
Norval Mitchell is the councillor for the Elmsdale area, but he also lives here in Elmwood, which has the most homes on a single exit. Other areas of concern are more rural, including multiple dead-end subdivisions affecting hundreds of homes in Mount Uniacke.
Now we're trying to prioritize which ones should be first, second, third, and so on.
The staff report highlighted areas where second routes could be created. Here in Elmwood, a landowner, FH Development, is planning an expansion that could create 2 new exits, but they didn't respond to our request for a timeline. Staff said substantial costs to upgrade roads and buy land would be expected, which means these communities aren't out of the woods yet. Luke Ettinger, CBC News, Elmsdale.
A senior BC cabinet minister is offering an unreserved apology, and Premier David Eby says she will now be making amends to, quote, repair the hurt she caused to Palestinian and Arab communities. Selena Robinson was speaking about the need for more education on the Holocaust when she made what she calls a flippant comment. But as David Ball explains, some critics now want her to resign.
Israel was offered to the Jews who were misplaced.
BC Post-Secondary Education Minister Selena Robinson, speaking at an online panel hosted Tuesday by Jewish advocacy group B'nai B'rith.
It was a crappy piece of land with nothing on it.
She apologized in writing Thursday, admitting her comments were disrespectful, saying, "I understand that this flippant comment has caused pain and that it diminishes the connection Palestinians also have to the land. I regret what I said, and I apologize without reservation." Premier David Eby accepts what he calls her unequivocal apology, but on Friday faced more questions.
The minister crossed the line as a member of cabinet. She made remarks that were wrong, that were hurtful for a community, that increased divisions.
But this provincial faculty union says Robinson's apology is not enough.
Her very strong political views have tainted her objectivity as minister, and she's behaved in a way that we believe is highly, highly inappropriate. She's not fit to serve as minister any longer.
Eby says that isn't happening.
Her comments increase division in our province. They increase the feelings of alienation of groups of people, especially people of Palestinian descent, and people who are concerned about the death and the destruction in Palestine that is happening right now. She assured me she understood that she would be apologizing unreservedly, that she would be doing all she could to repair the damage with affected communities, and that is my expectation of her.
This professor calls the remarks shocking and says the minister should show she has a better grasp of historical facts.
What the minister is describing is out of touch with reality, with history, and with every understanding of both the land and its history and its people.
People on both sides of the conflict are impacted, according to this historian who says Robinson's comments undermine Jewish and Palestinian connection to the land.
It's also revealing of biases and prejudices that I would find particularly troubling coming from a minister of post-secondary education. The rhetoric that denies the national claims of both populations, right, is a rhetoric that helps perpetuate this conflict.
In October, Hamas attacked and killed roughly 1,200 Israelis. Since then, the Israeli military has killed more than 27,000 Palestinians, according to Gaza's Hamas-run health authority. In this country, officials have warned about a rise in hate crimes directed to both Jewish and Muslim communities. David Ball, CBC News, Vancouver.
For the first time since 5 current and former NHL players were charged in an alleged group sexual assault, the NHL commissioner is speaking on how his league handled the incident. Gary Bettman says the NHL's own investigation was done months ago, but as Karen Pauls explains, the details are all under wraps.
The NHL All-Star Weekend is all about showcasing the best of the best. But this year, there's a dark cloud hanging over the fun.
Abhorrent, reprehensible, horrific, and unacceptable.
Commissioner Gary Bettman answered questions about how the league has handled the case involving players from Canada's 2018 World Junior Hockey Team, now charged with sexual assault.
The most responsible and prudent thing for us to do is await the conclusion of the judicial proceedings.
Former NHLer Alex Fermenton, who returned from playing in Switzerland, and 4 current NHLers have all turned themselves in, including Cal Foote of the New Jersey Devils, Calgary Flames player Dylan Dubé, Carter Hart of the Philadelphia Flyers, and Devils center Michael McLeod. He's also facing a second charge of being party to the offense. All 4 current NHLers are on leave with pay and won't be suspended.
They're all free agents. They won't be under contract after this season anyway.
In court documents, a young woman alleged she met some of the hockey players at a London, Ontario bar during a 2018 Hockey Canada event. She went to one player's hotel room to have sex, but she alleged the player allowed 7 others to join them without her knowledge or consent. She described a series of degrading sexual acts while she was intoxicated. Police initially closed their case in 2019, but reopened it after an eventual settlement between the woman and Hockey Canada went public. The NHL launched its own investigation. Bettman now says it's been done for months. The league interviewed every player of that 2018 World Junior team, but not the young woman.
She was absolutely within her rights not to talk to us, and we respect that.
The results of that investigation are still secret. Bettman defended the decision not to share them publicly or with the team's players.
We don't deal in speculation. We try to deal in facts. And before we ruin a player's career, we want to have some degree of certainty.
This sports lawyer says there's not much the NHL can do.
The last thing you want to do if you're a team is terminate or fire a player, because if you do that based upon mere allegations, what's going to happen is the players union, the NHLPA, will file a grievance against the NHL.
These players are innocent until proven guilty.
Karen Paul's reporting. 2023 was a year of high prices and high interest rates in Canada, and data released shows it was also a year of rising bankruptcies. Nisha Patel breaks down the sobering numbers.
Insolvency filings in Canada are piling up, and bankruptcy offices are in demand.
Our uptick in our business has been substantial. Both our consumer practice, which would be individuals and small enterprises, has been extremely busy.
Richard Goldhar is an insolvency trustee. He says steep labor costs and high interest rates are weighing on business bottom lines. Canadian business insolvencies climbed 41% last year.
So you're facing financial trouble?
Many small businesses are struggling with hefty debt taken on during the pandemic. And as the economy slows, retail, construction, and transportation businesses have been hit particularly hard.
We're seeing a very tough economic climate for a lot of businesses. Profits have plummeted. And at the same time, we've seen, I think, these stresses of perhaps the CBA loan repayments due, other stresses coming into play.
Economists warn if the trend continues, the months ahead could be painful.
We may start to see more job losses, and things may start to unravel more quickly than expected. So this is the concern.
Consumer bankruptcies are also rising fast, with insolvencies climbing 23% last year. The crushing cost of living forcing many to take on loans that can be too much to bear.
The high interest borrowing is an absolute issue right now. The cost of payday loans, high interest unsecured loans, credit card loan interest, it's just tremendously high.
With many on the financial brink, experts urge consumers to tackle money problems head on.
The sooner you call somebody for any sort of advice, the better off you are.
While it may seem daunting, it may also offer some relief. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
Developing news to share with you now. The U.S. military has launched an air assault on dozens of sites in Iraq and Syria. The attack comes after days of warnings from the Pentagon that a response was coming to the deaths of 3 American soldiers killed in Jordan last weekend. American military officials hit over 85 targets at 7 locations. Targets they claim are all linked to Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and affiliated militias. We are now in the 4th month of war between Israel and Hamas. That bitter conflict and the politics of it have left communities and even families divided. It has also become a catalyst for grassroots mobilization. Those divisions and alliances are forming here on the Lower Mainland. The CBC's Early Edition continues its series looking at the ripple effects called Voices from the Diaspora. Today we're going inside a restaurant. Story producer Sophie Woodruff takes you inside Tamam, a Palestinian eatery on East Hastings, to hear the conversations.
In a sunlit room, Sobi Al-Zabaidi walks onto a makeshift stage. The stage is in Tamam, a restaurant in East Vancouver.
You can't hear me? You can hear me now?
Sobi begins reading a poem in Arabic about the current conflict. Then a friend translates it into English. In the poem, Sobi describes his love of Palestine.
I am from Gaza, and my love is Jaffa.
And he describes his desire to be free.
I want to fly above the Arab League, Arab conspiracies and Arab stories and myths. I want to fly over the Iron Dome, the nuclear bomb and the American aircraft carrier. I want to fly because of my intense longing for my country. I will become like a pile of paper when it burns and flies. I want to fly.
It's Sobi's longing for Palestine that compelled him to open this restaurant with his wife more than a decade ago. And it's what's compelled him to host this event. It's a fundraiser to supply aid to Gaza. He and his wife want to raise $100,000. This fundraiser, the fourth they've hosted since October 7th, will get them $20,000 closer to that goal. There's food, there's music, and on the windows facing East Hastings Street, there's art. In this case, little cutout kites made by kids from a nearby elementary school. Here's Sobi.
And they wrote messages to the children of Gaza. I think this is really touches my heart and the heart of everybody to see children, grade 6 and 7, being involved in a political event, big event like this.
This is a fundraiser, yes. But for Sobi, this community event that's brought restaurant patrons, musicians, and even elementary school kids together, it's another kind of metaphor, a very significant one, says Sobi.
This is one of the most important things that we've done since we opened this restaurant 11 years ago, that we are able to offer the community this chance to get together.
This is my second time speaking with Sobi. The first was shortly after October 7th. At that time, he shared a story about how he grew up in the Al Jala Zone refugee camp north of Ramallah in the West Bank, and then went on to study film at New York University. He ended up in Vancouver and opened this restaurant with his wife, whose name is Tamam, as a way to share Palestinian culture. The first time we met, Sobi said that before the conflict, restaurant patrons would start by talking about food and then shift to politics. But since October 7th, the reverse is true. I wanted to know what else had changed for him, now that the grim milestone of 100 days of war has just passed. So I met up with him a few days before the fundraiser, when the restaurant was closed and empty. And rather than cut out kites, there was a map of Palestine before 1948. He's reproduced it to look like a monster, eating its own geography.
And you see these are the two eyes. If you step back, and this here looks like the mouth, this is the head. The way it's been since we spoke last, just growing more desperate. I mean, anxiety, yes, there is all, it's constant. It's as I said, it's almost desperation, really, and sense of hopelessness sometimes, helplessness.
Sobi says it's the sense of desperation that has driven him and Tamam to fundraise. He says grassroots action like this exemplifies a decades-long evolution taking place in the Palestinian diaspora.
In the old times, the only story we told about Palestine was a political story. Now we tell our story through food, filmmaking, poetry, songs. These cultural phenomena were not really at the forefront of Palestinian struggle, but little by little, again, with the growth of this diasporic nation, we incorporated new elements, cultural elements into our resistance.
He was born in 1961. In 1967, he experienced his first war, the Six-Day War between Israel and the neighboring states of Egypt, Jordan, and Syria. It ended with the capture and occupation of the West Bank, Gaza Strip, and other territories. Sobi says back then it wasn't safe for Palestinians to freely express themselves.
There was really like a total control over any expression of Palestinian identity. So when you have the chance, when you are abroad and you can make a play, write a song, make a film, go to a discussion group, go to a march, start a restaurant, do all these things are vehicles through which you are manifesting, you are telling your story in ways that you weren't allowed to do it under Israeli occupation.
Sobi, who is now a part of that diaspora, sees this evolving identity as a source of political power. This is a grassroots shift, he says, and it's been accelerating over the past 100 days of war. And this is what's changed since the last time we spoke.
It's a work in progress, and it's a process, really. The way Palestinians are realizing their sense of identity. Look at the watermelon now, for example, as a symbol, or the scarf, the kufiya. It has never been, much stronger. A community, I would say, is being formed, being born. This is not just a one-time event, because it's been happening over, weeks and weeks, and people like. So our fundraisers and this restaurant has become a site upon which people find it a safe space where they can get engaged somehow, They go to demonstrations, they go to marches, but they come to Tamam restaurant to donate money to be part of the fundraiser, because this is also part of helping and showing solidarity to Gaza.
Sobi gets up from his chair and walks to that map I mentioned, the one that shows Palestine before 1948, the one he's turned into a monster. This map is a copy of one given to him as a teenager by somebody he knew at a volunteer work camp. He says he carried it everywhere with him. Well, in 2005, he turned that map into another kind of artwork. He cut it up into 60 squares and challenged people to put it back together.
But you have to know the geography. You have to really know you have to know that this town comes after this town, like Kalkili where. So you have to know the map of Palestine in your heart to win the game. I destroyed the map somehow, but I preserved it in my heart, or in the heart and the mind of anybody who wants to play the game.
Sobi's been destroying and creating that map for almost 20 years now. And he says he doesn't know what form it will take next. But in the meantime, with these fundraisers at his and his wife's restaurant, and with a growing community around them, he's witnessing something new.
It's like seeing a baby being born during these fundraisers, Gaza fundraisers. We see a community being formed, a community, different ages, different backgrounds. They all coming together to do something together, to express something, to do something. It's like a spirit, the spirit of people in different places in the world that comes in solidarity with the people in Gaza.
A pair of robots are teaming up with AI to help out in a hospital lab. More details on how after this.
Don't get into this if you're not an adrenaline junkie. Skijuring comes from the Norwegian term for ski driving, and the idea is that you connect yourself to an animal. Originally, horses and reindeer were used, and now the sport's evolved to include dogs. Typically, you want to be on a nice, wide-groomed trail using cross-country skis. Traditionally, skate skis are used more in competition, though, if you're just getting started, classic skis are possible. And then you want to connect yourself with a bungee line to a dog that's fitted with a nice harness. Ideally, the dog's going to stay out in front of you on the trail and pull you as you ski.
I started about 2.5, maybe 3 years ago now. I was walking with my dog one day and she got super excited and started spinning around on a leash and pulling and wanted to run really, really fast. So I kind of said, you know what, we got to find a way for you to be able to run as fast as you want. I definitely recommend all new people who talk to me about it that they always learn all the groundwork on the ground on your feet first, because your feet are the best brakes that you have. So don't attach your dog to you while you're skiing if they don't know all the cues like left and right. Teaching an emergency stop was a big one for me too, because when my dog likes to get going, she sprints. Great!
Traditionally in mushing, we use G for right turn, HA for left turn, but really it's any command that you pick as long as you pick it and you're consistent with it. Walking on the sidewalk in our community, I hit a section where the sidewalk's going to turn right, I'm going to say G, and then I'm going to start traveling G until dog follows. Lots of praise. So that's how we start to teach them those commands. The purpose-bred dogs we have are called Eurohounds. They're Alaskan Husky Pointer Greyhound blends. But really any dog that's physically fit and healthy can participate. My sister has a 4-kilo miniature dachshund that I take out on the trail. Is he going to pull me at the same power? Obviously not. I have to help, but he loves to run. He loves to be outside, and so he gets to be involved.
My dog is Charlie, and he's a Kelpie Rottweiler cross. And then I have a rescue border collie too. This is my 3rd winter skijoring. We're in ski lessons right now, learning the basics. It's a great way to learn rather than just trying to learn yourself and watching YouTube videos online or whatever. It really pays to get a coach or a teacher to help you.
It's been such a fun experience to learn alongside her, and you kind of look back and you realize how far you've come and realize that you have progressed. And it is such a team sport because she can't pull me uphill by herself. I have to push with her.
Dog mushing does tend to get a bad rap. We go out there because we love to spend time with our dogs. We love to see them having fun. The most happy dogs you'll see on the planet are the dogs that are allowed to run to their heart's content. So that's the biggest thing for me.
pair of robots known as Tarzan and Jane have been swinging into action at St. Paul's Hospital, working long hours alongside artificial intelligence. Have a look.
There are two robots in the machine. One is called Tarzan and one is called Jane. We didn't name the robots. It's the company Copan that named the robots. And Tarzan really does all the heavy lifting. And then it hands over the more delicate work to Jane. They work together in parallel. And so it's quite impressive. I think you'll agree when I show it to you. I'm going to get some patient samples here. They go onto a plastic pallet. And so these are urine samples for patients who might have urinary tract infections, bladder infections, for example. And I'm going to put this onto the conveyor belt here. This is where the samples go. And the machine is going to accept these samples for processing. And the first part of the whole process is Tarzan and Jane, the two robots working together. And so Tarzan does all the heavy lifting. So Tarzan reads the barcode, it understands the protocol for processing the sample, it uncaps the sample, and it gets the sample ready for Jane. Jane takes over. She does a lot of the finer work, the more delicate work. Jane is the one that places a very small sample of the specimen onto the surface of the culture plate. She streaks it out, and then she puts the lid back on. She hands it back to Tarzan, and Tarzan puts another label onto the plate and then places the culture on the conveyor belt for the next step of the whole process. So that's the automated aspect, which is really important. But what's actually even more innovative is the digital imaging, the digital medicine. So there's a smart camera that's part of the system that takes images at time zero and over the next 6 hours, 8 hours, 24 hours, depending on the incubation for the plates. And then it inserts the plate into the smart incubator, and that's where the artificial intelligence does its magic.
Darius Madavi has our BC-wide weather forecast. But first, Groundhog Day today. What do you think of the analysis?
Not bad. I mean, it's the only weather-themed holiday, so it's pretty exciting. I know that
day off?
yeah, I'm going to let them do the whole thing today. We get quite a spread among all the Canadian sort of animal weather prognosticators, and it really depends where you go. We have some very cool ones. We have an albino groundhog that does some forecasting, a lobster out in Nova Scotia, because of course it's Nova Scotia, and here we have a Vancouver Island marmot, because the groundhog is a species of marmot, but of course the very endangered Vancouver Island marmot gets their own forecast. I had to add them on ourselves, but yeah, quite a split forecast, and I think they've got the right idea, because it's very difficult to do a seasonal forecast at all, but particularly this year, because not only are we in an El Nino, which usually brings warmer conditions, we also have an unusually disrupted polar vortex, which means over the next 4 to 6 weeks, we are more likely to get some outbreaks of cold air. Now, whether those make it here to the west coast is a very different story. It looks like right now it's more likely to make it to the east coast of Canada or another part of the northern hemisphere entirely. So sort of a mixed bag, but according to Environment Canada, over the next 3 months, we are more than likely, particularly for the southern parts of BC, to be more warm than usual. So looks like anybody who didn't see their shadow might have the right idea. So we'll have to see if that pans out. Now, as promised, here is the photo from Kelowna sent by the wonderful Sarah Penton, the host of Radio West. It's gorgeous. I would love to be there. And we're going to have another few nice days, but temperatures are starting to come down. Today we see a bit of a drop compared to yesterday, but the big drop for central BC comes tomorrow. And then for the rest of BC, it's sort of a slow decline in the days ahead. If we take a look at our freezing levels, they represent that pretty well. And as we start to see that drop, maybe into mid to late week next week, we actually get some precipitation to go along with it. Because for the most part, across the south coast, we're looking pretty dry in the days ahead. Most of our precipitation comes in the form of snow in the southeast and in the northwest. But here, on the lower mainland, it doesn't look like too much. Even Whistler looking a little bit bone dry, so not great news in terms of skiing. But if we look ahead across our conditions for tomorrow, you can see plenty of sun in the forecast across parts of the province, including here on the lower mainland. And then if we zoom into our 5-day forecast here in Vancouver, and really, this is a story across the south coast, we maybe get a little bit of a drizzle, but mostly we're seeing those temperatures drop overnight. This is a very, very low chance on Sunday. If anything, might come overnight Saturday into Sunday. And then we just have a bit of a cloudy forecast ahead.
Okay, and it's Friday, so it's time for Fun Fact Friday. And if you didn't already know, groundhogs are rodents. And Darius, you're going to tell us about a different creature. And you brought props.
I did. This is the social team mascot. This is Ice Cap and No Cap. They are capybaras. The largest rodent. I was going to do a fact about groundhogs, but the opportunity to hold this stuffed animal was too good to pass up on. So we've got some incredible photos and a video of the capybara, which is the largest rodent on the planet, found in northern South America and southern Central America. And they are around the size of a large dog and can run as fast as a dog, up to 35, 40 kilometers per hour. They are mostly herbivorous. They have a reputation as being extremely friendly. They're a prey animal, but if you don't look like a predator, you can approach and they will love you. And they just really eat plants and sometimes their own poop because it helps them redigest all those grasses they ate that didn't quite make it the first time. So quite adorable and quite cuddly.
You do you, capybara. Thanks.
Thank you.
In honor of Groundhog Day, a look back on the classic movie of the same name. And we ask, what day would you choose to live over and over and over again? Stay with us.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver Inbox.
This is Vancouver Island is the brand new podcast that explores stories of island life. Each week, host Catherine Marlowe looks at the joys and challenges of living on the island. Subscribe on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
And BC Today is the call-in show where British Columbians make their voices heard. And now you can watch it on television, stream it on CBC Gem, and hear it on CBC Radio 1 and CBC Listen.
We have some sad news to share in the entertainment world. Carl Weathers, who gave us Apollo Creed, Action Jackson, and played for the BC Lions, has died.
The whole world's gonna see the real Apollo Creed. Lightning fast and hard to catch. No playing, no jiving, just business.
Weathers' first big role was in the Rocky films as the title character's nemesis turned ally, the King of Sting, Apollo Creed. A former NFL and CFL linebacker, Weathers was a natural fit for muscle-bound action roles, but later audiences would see his gift for comedy in Happy Gilmore and Arrested Development. And in 2019, he played underworld fixer Greef Karga in the hit series The Mandalorian.
Arnold Schwarzenegger posted a photo of the two from the set of Predator, calling Weathers a legend. And in the early 1990s, he spent time in Vancouver shooting the crime drama Street Justice with Canadian actor Eric McCormack.
When we think of Rocky, when we think of that he was the tough guy, he seemed to be almost heartless as a character. But at the end of that thing, you saw in his eyes that he respected Rocky Balboa, and that's kind of the feeling I'll always take with me, is that's what he gave me.
Weathers' manager says he died on Thursday. His family says it was peaceful and in his sleep. Carl Weathers was 76. Good night, Apollo. As we know, it is Groundhog Day, which is also the premise for a classic movie. And Groundhog Day, Bill Murray is forced to live the same day over and over and over.
So we thought we'd ask the question, if you could live one day again and again, which day would you choose? Karis Hogg hit the ground to find out your answers.
If you could live one day over and over and over again, just like Bill Murray in Groundhog Day, what day would you choose?
See the groundhog? Yeah. Think it'll be in early spring.
Didn't we do this yesterday?
I don't know what you mean.
Don't mess with me, pork chop. What day is this?
It's February 2nd. Groundhog Day.
I'm in downtown Vancouver. I'm going to ask some people that question. If you could live one day over and over again, like Bill Murray in Groundhog Day, what day would you choose?
My wedding day with my wife.
Aww. Yeah, for real?
Yeah. Maybe the birth of my son second, but yeah, definitely getting married to my wife.
And where did you get married?
We're getting married at some Korean church, at a reception at Bricks, and I don't even remember the day because it went by so fast.
But so is that maybe why you want to do it again, because it went by so quickly?
Oh, actually, I don't know. Yeah, I think so.
If you could relive one day, what day would you choose?
The day I was born.
Great answer. And why is that?
Because that's when I got life, so that was the greatest day of my life.
Maybe a Christmas Day when I was a kid. I think that'd be a good one.
And what made Christmas Day when you were a kid special that you'd want to relive it over and over and over again?
Just being with family, being excited to open presents, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Do you have one specific present that you remember from being a kid?
The first Nintendo Entertainment System that we got in 1990, I believe. Yeah.
And what game did you play incessantly on that?
Mario and Duck Hunt. Yeah.
Did you have the gun?
Yeah, we had the gun too, the bright orange one. Yeah.
I would choose... That's actually a good question. I think for me it's gonna be hiking days. So recently I went for a hike. It's called Water's Pride. It was an 8-hour-long hike, and you end up near like a lake. So I think I would choose that day just because it's very peaceful, very calming, and you're with your loved ones. So I think I like the mix with the nature and having friends around.
And if you were to do that over and over and over again, would you be very tired?
I would be very tired, but I don't imagine like hiking and over again. Probably like being in the lake over and over again more.
Okay, awesome. What day would you choose?
I would choose 4th of July. 4th of July, yeah. Neighbors come out and have fun, and there's so many games and fireworks. Yeah, summer, heat. I like that.
And so where are you from?
I'm from Denmark, actually. I have some relatives in California. And then we just went out, and the whole neighborhood just went to one place, and cold beers. It was really cool. Yeah, yeah.
That's great. Sorry that you missed your light to talk to me. I'm very sorry about that. But thank you. I appreciate it. Have a great day. Bye.
There you go.
Huh? For me, it's any day with you, Dan. Now go on. Say yours.
Sunny day in Greece and a catamaran with cocktails and family. Still love you.
Yeah. Really, it's any day. I don't have plans, so I don't have to cancel on people day after day after day. Thanks for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6. You can watch this newscast on CBC Gem, our free app, as well as on YouTube and our website, cbc.ca/BC.
And we'll have your next local news at 11 o'clock, right after the National. See you then.